I'm Sam McCullum. I started in 1974 as a rookie with the Minnesota Vikings. Spent 2 years in Minnesota, had a chance to go to the Super Bowl in 1974. After the 74 season, played against Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, we lost to them. Then I went to Seattle in 1976 in the expansion draft, which was quite an exciting time and also very different. I was there for 6 years. Then in 1982, I came back to Minnesota for my last 2 years in the league. So why am I here? I am also the current president of the Northwest chapter of the Retired Players Association. I'm also the vice president of the NFL Alumni Group in Seattle. So I've got these two connections here, and came down, did some speaking with the current players on Friday, kind of shared some experiences of the 1982 timelines. So it kind of gave them a little bit of experience of history and how history is kind of repeating itself and what's going on currently today. So it's interesting. So here's a media that we talked about a great deal for communication. We're talking about the internet and social media, something that in 1982 was someone's mind at that time, I think, but not quite sure. So I'm down here getting some information that I can share with my members in the Northwest chapter. Seattle's a great city and a lot of great members out there. So trying to get some stuff I can share with them. At the same time, to educate the fans on what's going on. So that's what I'm doing here. So it's been a great deal. Been a great show so far.
Obviously, your meeting's going on during a lockout. I guess, can you talk about the labor disputes that you were involved in, and if there's any similarities, or what advice do you have based on your experiences for these guys?
Well, ironically, in 1974, when I came in, that was the first real strike that players had at that time. So as a rookie coming in and not having the ability to communicate with us, all of us crossed the line. So we really didn't have the interest of the current players at heart when we were in camp then, because we didn't know the issues that were going on. At the same time, none of them ever reached out to us directly because they weren't given access to us. So that was my rookie year, 1974. And I'm in Minnesota with the great Minnesota Viking team, the Purple People Eaters, the Fran Tarkins, the Chuck Formans, the Brett McClanahans, and the Carlos, and all those great players. So I was really kind of in awe of all that. And so in 1977, the agreement came up again. There was really not much at that point that was really done to try to educate a lot of the players, because then it was just a matter of getting the contract signed. Well, finally, in 1982, I was the player rep for Seattle. At the same time, we went to Albuquerque, New Mexico for our convention that time, and we worked hard on trying to communicate. At the same time, trying to isolate ourselves from being isolated out. By that I mean is that we put together these committees of people to work with networking, to work with phone trees, information out to the former players, to our current players at the time. At the same time, to provide multiple voices for what's going on in Seattle, not just my voice, multiple voices. So I had the Ken Easleys, I had the Dave Browns, I had the great Jacob Greens, I had the Art Kuhns, and I had several of the players there that was involved that was also part of my committee. And we talked about that, and we talked about the ability to shield each other. Unfortunately, in 1982, there were still some very hostile feelings, and I was cut because of my union activities in 1982. So I'm here, and I got a chance to share with the current players the situation that happened, because as history repeats itself, they're going to try to isolate each of the players. They're going to try to isolate them in their individual cities. They're going to try to put the information out there that's not quite true to the fans and also to the current players, to confuse some of them into thinking that, well, this is what I'm hearing, but you guys are telling me something different. And the more you get conflicting information, the harder it is to get a consensus by the players that are out there today, and the more opportunity the other side has to get a deal that's in their favor. So as former players, we're here to share with them that history does repeat itself, because in 1982 we had a problem communicating, misinformation. They isolated us as player reps at the time. They cut a lot of us. And at the same time, they told some of the star players, don't go to the convention. And they pulled them out. Like in 1989, they pulled out the star players, and they did the quarterback club. In 1982, they told a lot of star players, don't go. You don't want to be associated with a union, because the unions are not good for business. They're not good for the sponsors, so don't go. So here you were in 1982, 1989, and here we are again today, where they're trying to pull out licensing agreements from the current players to get them to go a different direction to weaken the NFLPA. So it's history repeating itself all over again. That's what it is.
How well prepared do you think today's players are for this lockout?
I think that today's players are very, very well prepared for the lockout, but can they handle the pressure will be a different story. Meaning by that is that they're prepared because information is amazing. It's the social media, from the Twitter to the internet to the emails that they've got out there to the different things that they can do, the blogs they can write for each other. It's an incredible amount of information that they can get out in a very short period of time. As an example, I was very proud when I was here on last Thursday. The letter went out to all the players from the commissioner, spelling out all the things that they were doing as opposed to what the leadership was doing here in Florida. Well, the next day, there was all these answers for all the guys in the emails and the Twitter accounts that went to all their players as well, dispelling all those lies. Well, when I was at the bargaining table in 1982 in New York City, we would agree on things in the evening times of those sessions. And the next day, we get up in the newspaper, and it's like we hadn't even talked to the same people. Like we're talking different languages. And we had days, I mean, sometimes weeks, before we were able to combat that misinformation. So today's players are much more informed, much more informed. The question is, can they handle the pressure from the standpoint of what's going to build in the coming weeks? Because as they get further into the off season, they cannot go to the facility and work out. Then they've got to find alternate ways of working out. Their health insurance, they've got to deal with their own health insurance out there today, which they've never had to deal with before. You're dealing with the issue of not being able to a place to go and talk to your players and talk to your teammates and work out. That camaraderie is being taken from them again. Once again, that isolation. So we talk about that to them. It's important that they make that extra effort to maintain a lot of normalcy in their life as best they can. So they're prepared, but can they maintain? I think they will, just because the leadership is so good. Kevin Mawai is amazing. Jeff Saturday is amazing. Lloyd Malloy, on and on. The Dawkins, these guys are incredible leaders. And I think the young guys will learn a lot from these guys and will benefit.
You mentioned the quarterback club. What was that?
The quarterback club was a group of 5 individuals, quarterbacks, that the league brought into a equity agreement. They set up a separate company as part of NFL Properties where these guys had equity in this company. And these guys were told, you guys are different. You are marketable. We're going to take you out and we're going to market you as a separate organization away from the rest of the players. So what they did, they took the high-profile guys, set them in a separate program, and gave them special rights that the other guys didn't have, which was hard because here you are fighting for an agreement, and you take out guys, and they said, well, we're going to take care of ourselves, not take care of you. That was the start of the quarterback club. Well, they eventually took not just quarterback, but defensive back, defensive lineman, even guys that are here from Cornelius Bennett signed up for this particular program. So it was a way that they took the licensing revenue, took away some of the exposure of some of your high-ranking players, and shifted it to the NFL, away from the NFL Players Association. So in 1982, they told the players, don't come to the convention because if you come down there, we can't market you if you're affiliated with a union. So that's what happened. Well, eventually, I want to say 1992, the NFL Players Association bought back those rights for all those players into their fold under Players Inc. So it took that long. So those 5 players had an equity interest in the quarterback club. So that was different. That was hard for some of the players to accept.
So do today's players need to be wary about getting these type of deals and offers from the NFL to kind of put them on the other side?
Absolutely. Ironically, there's been a licensing group developed out there. It was around 1992. That's now back in operation out there, trying to get players to sign up. They're offering these guys money and checks, trying to get them to sign up, and not just current players, but also some former players to try to add some legitimacy to their cause. So that's ongoing. So the current players out there are really need to be aware. I think they've been made aware because of the communication that this is going to happen to them. They're going to come out there, someone's going to offer them a nice little check, sign up with us, sign up with us. And the minute they do, they're going to be splashed across the front of these newspapers saying, hey, the NFLPA is losing their players, they're starting to desert these guys, and they'll try to discredit the whole organization. So they really got to be aware of that.
How's the convention going down there? Any particular conversations kind of stick out in your mind that you've had with some of the guys?
Yeah, the conversation that stuck out most in my mind was being approached by Drew Brees. When I was around 82, there wasn't a lot of quarterbacks involved in it. There's very few of them that was involved. Here he is, one of the most visible guys in the league, walked up to me as a former player and says, I'm glad you're here. He says, your involvement means a lot to us, and we're not going to forget what you guys did for the game. That was amazing. That just struck me, wow. He knew who I was first, and secondly, to come walk up to me and start talking to me, I was pretty amazed. I'm going to ask him for his autograph. But then again, he's approaching me saying he's really happy to meet me and everything else. I was shocked. I mean, really, really shocked. Then I had a chance to talk to Charlie Batch, and then I spent a lot of time with Matt Hasselbeck, being the Seattle guy, and I was amazed at their belief and their involvement. But it was incredible. These guys are coming to us, former guys, and talking to us and being happy to meet us. I mean, we're shocked, but we're very pleased that they remember us, and that's really been incredible.
You mentioned Drew Brees, but other big-name guys, big-name quarterbacks such as Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, they became plaintiffs on the antitrust suit. Is that a big statement for the players to have those kind of big-name guys involved in this labor dispute?
Absolutely. When you have the big names in the business, and you can arguably say they're the 3 biggest names in the business out there, but then again, you've got other guys as well that are doing a lot of work. So having them involved, what it does is they step out to the forefront. It tells the fans that, okay, everybody's involved. If these guys are involved, and these are the highest paid guys in the league, and technically they may not benefit, probably won't benefit by the agreement that's signed because they're making plenty of money as it is. But they stuck out and stepped out for their fellow players. That's incredible. It really is incredible to show their commitment to not just their own pocket, but to everybody else's pocket. So it's really big that they're out front in this deal.
What are former players doing to help get their health benefits increased?
Well, what are we doing as former players? There's not a lot we can do other than offer advice to the negotiating committee and the executive committee. But what has happened this year, for the first time ever, actually, through the leadership of DeMar Smith as well as the executive committee and Kevin Mawai, was they've asked two former players to sit on the executive committee and the negotiating committee as just observers. But then again, they're in the room during the negotiating session. So when things come up about benefits, come up about pensions, come up about health care, and about all these things, they're able to give answers and to be able to give input on the spot. At the same time, when things come up like the decision to have a special adjustment on your pension program, and as the owner said at the table recently that it's either going to be this or this, which one do you guys choose? And at that point, the retired player said, well, why has to be a choice between the current and the former? It has to be the same. They're going to be former players before long, so therefore treat them as you treat us. So it's been really good. So we've got voice at the table for the first time ever for former players. So that's really big for us as we work toward better benefits.
Having played in Seattle and Minnesota, how will those areas be affected by the lockout if this goes into the season?
Well, you figure if the lockout goes into the season, there's going to be an awful lot of people at stadiums, parking lots, hotels, restaurants around the stadium. They're not going to have that revenue, and not to mention the the airlines as well, because people fly into these games, particularly in Seattle. We get people in Seattle that come in from Alaska, come from Montana, come from Idaho, come from Oregon, and come from Canada. They'll fly into the Seattle area for the weekend. It's a family, it's a gathering time, it's a camaraderie time. They have a great time. Without the games, those benefits those people and the businesses that benefit by those people being there won't have that. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of revenue lost in those cities when these games are locked out. So it's not good. It's really not good for anybody at this point. And I know the players have fought hardly, and they're still fighting very hard not to be locked out. They want to go back and they want to work. I know that.
What do you think of the new rules that the NFL voted on yesterday for kickoffs and instant replay?
Well, I've heard a little bit about it, but I don't know much about the new rules out there right now. I'm not quite sure what they say at this point. So I'm not.
They moved the kickoff up 5 yards, so probably mean more touchbacks, and then instant replay will happen on every scoring point.
Wow, so they moved the kickoff up 5 yards, so there will be a lot more touchbacks. So it'll take out the Devin Hesters of the games and the Leon Washingtons of the game, and these guys who make a real big impact. And what else that'll do for the team? It'll make these teams have to drive long distances now, because it used to be you have a lot of kickoffs. Even if you start at the 40-yard line or the 45-yard line a great deal of the time on your side of the field, it's a short field. You can get a field goal out of it, which can change the game. Not only that, you can change field position in that process. You can flip the field position. Whereas if you start every down after kickoff at the 20 to 25, it makes it a lot longer drive to be able to change field position or even get a field goal. So it's going to impact the offensive side of the ball, no doubt about that. It will definitely do that. But as far as the instant replay on every score, wow. I hate to think what it's going to be to the length of the game, because right now instant replays can take an eternity sometime, and that changes the whole pace of the game. I would hope they look at that a little bit differently, or have some kind of set standards that if they have a score, it's going to be a very short review and not be these long reviews that we see sometime during the season.
Okay. Do you have a closing message for maybe the active players and the fans during this tough time, obviously a lockout?
Yeah, the message I would have, I guess, for everybody out there today, particularly all the fans, patience. Understand that the players are trying to get a fair deal for themselves out there. When you look at industry generating $9 billion as it did in 2010, and you think about the economy of what it was in 2009, 2010, to know that the revenue generated from the NFL was incredible. It's the highest ever. Their forecast and projection, they mean the NFL, is really going to be around $25 billion in the next 10 years. That's a tremendous amount of revenue being generated out there, and the players are only asking to have their fair share. So for the fans, it's hard to understand, but when you think about it, they're unique. They're very unique. They're an industry that's nothing like in the whole country. They're the only business out there that has a monopoly. They live within separate antitrust laws. They don't live by the rest of anybody else's rules. And so the players themselves have to also understand that, and they do understand that. So if they anything else, they want the fans to really understand what they're going through. And for the players, the active players and the retired players out there, understand that when you hear the message as one, they're one team, it is truly that. The players here are really focusing on that a great deal, and it's been a tremendous, tremendous exciting point for us former players that are here. And there's over like 250 of us here. We'll be able to share with those guys that are out there. There's a lot of information on the websites out there, so please be informed what's going on to help each other out there, really understand that the players are locked out. They want to play, but more importantly, we as former players can help them and help all of us by just being informed, and that's going to be key.